All right, y'all, welcome to the Scott Horton Show. I'm the director of the Libertarian Institute, editorial director of antiwar.com, and author of Provoked, How Washington Started the New Cold War with Russia and the Catastrophe in Ukraine. Sign up for the podcast feed at scotthorton.org or scotthortonshow.com. I've got more than 6,000 interviews in the archive for you there going back to 2003. And follow me on all the video sites and X at Scott Horton Show. All right, you guys, introducing Mark Lynch. He is a state senator from South Carolina, and he is running against Lindsey Graham in the primaries here, trying to finally spare our country of this menace. Welcome to the show. How you doing, Mark?
Doing fine. Thank you for having me on, Scott.
Very happy to have you here on the show with us today. And this is something that I know a lot of people have been dreaming of for a very long time and even wondering why this hasn't happened. Why must the state of South Carolina continue to inflict this horrible man onto the rest of our society and the planet Earth for that matter? And you're finally willing to get out there and do something about it, huh?
Yes, sir. Yep.
All right. So tell us, what's your motive for getting in this race?
Well, I've been asked to get in. People met me when I ran for a state Senate seat back in 2020. I've worked with these guys at the National Security Consulting, some of the best people in the country that are willing to risk their lives in fighting our evil terrorists and things in the United States, and working with them, being on their board and understanding a lot of that and running for a state Senate seat. I almost won. I lost by 5% back in 2020. And people have asked me to run again, that they're looking for somebody that won't compromise, that has integrity and courage with a backbone, that'll lead our state and help vote correctly, constitutionally, and keep us out of all these wars we keep getting into and many other things that Lindsey's famous for. So my wife and I prayed about it, and this last summer started talking about it, and we made a decision back in February and filed with the Federal Election Commission in February. So it's on. We're running for the United States Senate.
All right. So now, obviously, you're going to have a lot to say about Graham, who you're trying to spare us from, but you, of course, have your own agenda. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you would like to see and what you would like to do as a United States Senator, and then we'll get back to picking on Graham here.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the first things I would want to do, Scott, is form a Senate subcommittee to stop and block and vet bills coming across our desk that are un-American, anti-American activities that don't line up with America First policies, especially like wars and things. You know, if it's not going to benefit us and it's not constitutional, then we need to stop it right there and not go any further with it. The other thing is get rid of all these unconstitutional agencies that we've allowed our employees in D.C. to form that are unconstitutional. They've gone outside of their enumerated powers and increased their government size over the people. And it's costing us trillions of dollars. We're never going to get out of debt if we don't stop all the spending, the frivolous spending that we've allowed to go on. Another big deal that we would want to tackle, and a lot of people are talking about it finally, is getting rid of our property taxes. You know, if I own my car or my home, I don't need to pay somebody a protection fee to keep it, you know, or you'll come take it from me. If I have a deed or a title to it, that's the end of it. I don't need to keep paying any more taxes. I'm glad that Trump has the tariffs going, and we can help fund our economy through tariffs, and it's leveling up the playing field where we can bring back American manufacturing back home again and employ Americans instead of farming out all of our production in our country overseas and losing our ability to make something, especially our pharmaceuticals overseas in China. That needs to end. You know, we're selling a lot of our land to China in South Carolina, and we're losing our property and our farming capability. And we got to stop that and keep our land here and bring back farming back into South Carolina and help our farmers in that perspective. There's so many things we have to tackle. America's, you know, we're upside down, and it's pretty easy to go on and on and on. The list could be 100 things because everything's messed up. We've got a big problem and a lot of opportunities. But one of my biggest things I'll attack and fight for is to end the murder of our children in the mother's wombs. We call it abortion. It's murder. We've killed 63 plus million of our own children in this country, and I'm 100% pro-life. I'll do everything I can to continue to fight that and get abortion ended once and for all.
On the national level.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, so, this is a foreign policy show, so I don't want to really go over all of that stuff, but we're largely in agreement, if not in total agreement, about a lot of those things. But I have to ask you about your position on Israel, because, of course, so much of America's foreign policy is warped around Israel's interests, which oftentimes are not in alignment with the interests of the United States of America.
Right.
For example, their enemies primarily in the Middle East are the Shiites, whereas it was the bin Ladenites, the radical edge of the Sunni movement, that knocked our towers down and are a threat to the American people, not Hezbollah or any other Iranian forces. So, and this is something that, of course, has been at the heart of what's bad about Lindsey Graham, is that he is not America first, he is Israel instead. And that has clearly been a major part of his motivation for supporting all these horrible Middle East wars all this time. Now, obviously, you're running in the Republican Party for the United States Senate. You must like Israel and want to be friends with Israel, but I'm just wondering, how far are you really willing to take that, and as compared to Lindsey Graham?
Yes. Well, Israel has a different definition today, and most people are not deep into it. They bring out the verses that are a little deceptive out of the Bible, that blessed are those who bless Israel and cursed are those who curse Israel. And it doesn't say that. It's talking about Abraham and his descendants, and the true Israel is God's people, us, those who are saved. And, it's not a location, it's not a nation. And Israel has been behind and deceptively funding a lot of the stuff that we have fought against. They were involved in starting it and funding and helping the Palestinians and all in Gaza and all of that. So I support the true Israel. I mean, a true Jew that's not a Zionist or a whatever. But again, if it's coming up against America and it's deceptively setting up Islamic terrorist stuff, then I'm obviously not going to help support that.
Yeah,
I won't.
And I think I got what you meant when you said in supporting the Palestinians. Not that he is supporting the Palestinians, but he was supporting Hamas and foisting Hamas onto the Palestinians, really.
Right.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that. But yeah, that's a very good point, and I understand what you're saying very well there. And I think that, obviously, the United States of America over the long term, we want to be friends with everyone. And that was what Thomas Jefferson and George Washington said, is that we should have peace and commerce and honest friendship with all nations, but entangling alliances with none. So it seems like he could be pretty pro-Israel in sentiment without that ever really translating into some kind of policy where the American people are now bound to serve the interests of some foreign country. That's a totally different concept than just being friends.
That's right. We got to protect our sovereignty here.
Yeah. Well, I sure appreciate that sentiment, and it takes real courage, especially on the right. But you know what? More and more, sir, it takes less and less courage to make these statements and take these positions on the right. And the recent polls say that by far a majority of Americans now sympathize more with the Palestinians, and it's even 50-50 on the right. So I don't know exactly what the numbers are in South Carolina, but, as Colonel McGregor says, time wins more arguments than reason. And, especially evangelical Christians have been promised so many magical things that would happen if they would support Israel. I mean, they're supposed to get the rapture as their reward for supporting Iraq War II. If you ask John Hagee and a lot of the Sunday morning preachers back 20 and 25 years ago, and those promises didn't pan out. And I think people are now looking at it like it's 2025. The millennium came and went. The end of the world didn't come. And so who was it who were pushing those lies, and why should we believe in them anymore? And maybe we could just look at America's relationship with Israel through the eyes of national states on the planet Earth in these times, rather than simply looking at them through the eyes of the ancient Bible or in future prophecy coming true, but just look at them as another state on the planet like Canada or England or France or Zimbabwe or anybody else. And when we can look at them in that much more reasonable light, I think then we'll be able to make much more reasonable policies about how to move forward in our relationship with them.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's good. And I'm glad to hear that you're willing to take that stand. And so now I'm really interested in what kind of reception you're getting in South Carolina. I can't stretch my mind enough to imagine that the people of South Carolina ever really loved or supported Lindsey Graham, right? He's been foisted on y'all from above the same way that Hamas has been foisted on the poor people of Palestine, right? Yeah. That like you have to suffer the indignity of having this guy claim to be your leader. But so tell me that the people of your state are just sick and tired of this by now.
Well, our polls that we did a couple of months ago tell us that 57% of the South Carolinians will not vote for Lindsey Graham again. They're finally in tune with his patterns, and he comes to the right a little bit, near election time, and then the rest of the 5.5 years, he's supporting the Democrat, far left, radical left, crazy people. And his voting record proves it. He's got a 57% voting record constitutionally, lifetime voting record. So he's failing. And all 4 scorecards that the public can go and look up the voting record, he's below passing. And so people see that. They see what he was doing, promoting war again with Zelensky when Trump's trying to promote peace. Lindsey Graham's going over there like he's the Secretary of State, and he's not Marco Rubio. And finally, Trump called him out on it and said, you need to be careful what you're saying. Watch your mouth over there, because he's a war promoter. When we look on his election commission ledger, we saw all the millions of dollars that came in from Lockheed Martin and Boeing because, they love him to go and keep endless wars going, sending our children into more wars, getting them blown up and killed so they can all make more money and keep the industrial war complex military factories running, supplying war products. Mm-hmm. And, everybody's tired of that. And it hadn't done a thing for America. And he's getting rich off of it, and many other people are. And warmonger is his name that everybody's familiar with now. And it's taken a while, but the low educated voter has gotten educated in the last 4 years, and they felt the pain, and they've come out and they're finding out what's really going on.
Yeah.
And so they're ready to remove him now.
Yeah. Hang on just one second for me. Hey, you guys, this October, Mikkel Thorup is once again hosting the free Expat Money Online Summit this October 10th through 12th. Thorup is a great dude. How do I know? Well, I toured ancient Mayan ruins with him in Mexico one time. It was rad. He's a serious expert in residency and citizenship laws and customs around the world. He knows it all, chapter and verse, where you can put your money and put yourself anywhere in the world you might want to go. He can show you how to acquire second residencies and other real estate, get foreign citizenship, legally mitigate taxes, set up offshore banking, and more. This year's summit is focused on Latin America. Mikkel and other top-tier experts will help you build your offshore plan B and understand the geopolitical forces reshaping the region. Head over to expatmoneysummit.com to reserve your free ticket today. That's expatmoneysummit.com. Hey, y'all, if you run a business or a side hustle and want to keep more of your money out of the IRS's hands, Matthew Cerceli, the Agorist Tax Advisor, is your guy. He'll help you set up your business the right way, find every legal deduction, and keep the feds off your back without you ever needing to talk to the IRS yourself. Unlike most tax pros, Matthew actually hates the IRS and calls it a win-win when you get to keep your money and the government gets less. That's my kind of tax guy. Check them out at agoristaxadvice.com/Scott to get your free Agorist tax toolkit. That's agoristaxadvice.com/Scott.
Hey guys, I've had a lot of great webmasters over the years, but the team at expanddesigns.com have by far been the most competent and reliable. Harley Abbott and his team have made great sites for the show and the Institute, and they keep them running well, suggesting and making improvements all along. Make a deal with expanddesigns.com for your new business or news site. They will take care of you. Use the promo code SCOTT and save $500. That's expanddesigns.com. Man, I wish I was in school so I could drop out and sign up for Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom instead. Tom has done such a great job on putting together a classical curriculum for everyone from junior high schoolers on up through the postgraduate level. And it's all very reasonably priced. Just make sure you click through from the link in the right margin at scotthorton.org. Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom. Real history, real economics, real education.
Hey, y'all, here's how you can support those who support this show and stay awake while you're doing things. Moondo's Artisan Coffees, moondosartisancoffees.com. Get it? Starbucks supports the war party. Moondo's is with us. And it's really good. Get the Scott Horton Show blend. Just click the link in the right-hand margin at scotthorton.org. You know, there's such an important lesson from 2016 when Donald Trump went to South Carolina and debated, I believe, I forgot how many, but it was many other Republicans. It was still like 8 or 10 of them in the primary race at that time. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump came out and pointed at Jeb Bush and said, his brother lied us into war. And the audience was upset. And they even did questions from the audience. And one of the guys got up and said, I served in the war. Did I just hear you right? I know you didn't just say that. And he backed down a little and goes, well, maybe they didn't deliberately lie, but they shouldn't have done it. And there were no weapons of mass destruction. And America first means we're not doing that anymore. And Jeb Bush, I believe it was the same debate, completely stumbled and said, George Bush, my brother, he kept us safe. Remember the rubble from what a great job he did keeping us safe? And Trump just mocked him and laughed at him. And the media said that Trump's goose is cooked. You can't go to South Carolina and denounce the war. And the next day, Donald Trump had, in the primary there, I guess it wasn't the next day, but in the polls show that he completely cleaned everybody's clocks. And then in the actual race there, he got, I think, more than a third or something, and all the other candidates split the other 2/3, right? Or he may have even won like 50%, and all the other 10 candidates or 8 or 10 candidates split the other 50%. He cleaned their clocks, even though he was saying what was supposed to be verboten and was the kind of thing that supposedly would just hurt the war veterans of South Carolina's feelings and make them angry at him for saying that. But instead, it was just like with Ron Paul. They respected it because they knew it was true. And they had their own resentments over being lied into that war. They didn't want to just be patted on the head and told that, no, it was all okay. They knew it wasn't okay. And so they rallied around the guy who told them the uncomfortable thing that they didn't really want to hear, but in hindsight, they really did want to hear, and that they rallied around that level of honesty. So I think that's so important. And that was 9 years ago. So I think by now, this is what you could be running on. That like Lindsey Graham is the war party, and we are putting an end to that. South Carolinians for, peace and a responsible foreign policy. And I bet you can get the war veteran Republicans of your state to rally around that message, as opposed to his recklessness, right?
Yeah. I mean, how many veterans, Scott, do we hear, they end up saying, I'm here protecting my brother. We're covering each other's backs in this war. We don't know why we're over here. We're just trying to stay alive till we get home because there's no purpose in sight other than there's a lot of money being made off another war that they've thrown us into.
Yep.
And that's just horrible. Ever since Vietnam forward, we've gone to all these wars for what? Then we watched that ridiculous exodus out of Afghanistan, Biden led, with ISIS leading it. We lost 13 men that day. And then we start letting terrorists come in to our states and act like they're refugees. And it's been a horrible thing. But, I was watching some of your latest 10-hour interview today watched about an hour of it, and it's excellent. You've got me hooked. I'll be finishing it.
Great.
With all your great knowledge of all the history with all of these topics we're talking about now. But a few points that you brought up that really were interesting, other than the trillions of dollars we've wasted and all of the lives, but the men coming back home. And we've been hearing about the suicide rates, but you brought up a great point where they're getting on these drugs, that it magnifies the very symptoms and feelings they're having, and is helping cause more suicides. And they're getting addicted to these antidepressant drugs, and the drug manufacturers are just raking it in off of that, while our veterans are coming home just struggling. And
Yep.
We don't leave people behind in war, but we're leaving them behind when they get home.
Right.
And the devastation of what they've gone through, and for no real reason to be involved in war. Surely we can all see that. And I hope that I can get into the United States Senate and make a difference with my vote, and keep us from going to all these wars so fast. Lindsey's all about that, and a lot of them are. And I think the veterans are a strong voice in that arena, saying, why were we even there? And we weren't allowed to win, and we have too many rules of engagement. They can't go and do their job, and they're not supported. They're just forgotten when they get back home. It's horrible. The collateral damage that continues from every war there, like with the malnutrition you were talking about, it went from 2% to 50% on the war, like in Afghanistan, for the native Afghans there living there. It left them devastated too,
Yep. And
So
it's so
it's
important,
just, it's too much.
do you remember the representative Walter Jones from North Carolina? And he was the guy who had renamed French fries Freedom Fries back at the start of the war. And then he changed his mind. He was a Catholic, and he repented and got down on his knees and prayed for forgiveness. And he realized how wrong he had been to support the war. And before he died, we had a conversation where I thought it was so important to emphasize what you just said about how rough that this has all been for the people on the other side too. And Walter would always emphasize the hardship for American soldiers, which of course is important, and which is most important for us because we're Americans and they're our guys. And as you said, they're sent over there essentially trusting that they're doing the right thing, and then are essentially betrayed by being forced into wars that, that they don't really belong in or have a real role in. And, but I think I did convince him, but it was too late. He died very soon after this anyway, but I was trying to convince Walter Jones that, like, you have to mention from time to time too how bad this has been for the Iraqis, for the Afghans, the Syrians and the Libyans and the Somalis and the rest, because when you talk about the hardship for American soldiers, that can be spun the other way. That look at the valorous sacrifice that our men have made for the good of the people of Iraq, to help the people of Afghanistan, to enlighten the poor, downtrodden people of Libya and Syria and all of this. And so then their ultimately useless sacrifice is spun as worthy and even worth replicating because of all the great benefits that we've brought to the people of these countries that we've attacked in the name of doing them good. And so it's important to emphasize, as you just did, that, the standard of living in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya and Syria and the rest of these places is through the floor. It is the Christian communities, especially of Iraq and Syria, have been completely obliterated. And this is not okay, what we've done. Our guys, as you said, their valorous sacrifice to protect each other in battle was not for any good in any larger sense at all, in any macro sense at all. We can respect them for their sacrifices to protect each other. But as far as their officers and the political appointees who sent them into these battles, no, sir. None of this was right at all. And all of it was regrettable. And the people of the Middle East would have been so much better off too if we hadn't have done it. And it seemed like I convinced him of that, I think,
because he was like, oh, yeah, I see what you mean. That when you only focus on the hardship of the soldiers, in a way, you kind of leave the Bush administration's implication that still this was all for the good of the people whose countries we attacked. And so maybe as Bush put it to Cindy Sheehan, that her son's death, he died for a noble cause, right? That this was the right thing ultimately, and that his sacrifice was worth it in that sense. When in fact, no, that's really not right,
Horrible.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm sorry. I don't mean to just lecture you. I'm supposed to be interviewing you, but I'm really excited to see that you're running, and I'm excited to see that, the effect of your primary challenge to Lindsey Graham has, in your state and in the broader culture. I mean, it really does come down to, what does America first mean? Does that just mean we're selfish jerks and get what we want? Or that means, no, defend America first and leave the world alone with a decent respect for the rest of mankind. That, no, we're not the bosses of them. And our government's jurisdiction is to protect our lives and liberty, and not to rule the rest of the world in this way. And I just think, the time has come for this. This is the narrative. This is overwhelmingly the dominant narrative out here in the alternative media, which is now the dominant media in the country, even if it's not the dominant message in Congress and in Washington yet. But we're making great headway. And so I think that your run is a great example of the progress we're making. I can't wait to see the results of the thing.
Yes, thank you, Scott. People can go to lynchforsenate.com, and most importantly, we love it when people say we're praying for your campaign. That's how we win this, is on our knees. But go to our website at lynchforsenate.com, to the viewers out there, and sign up, help our campaign. We need volunteers to door knock, put signs out, and get organized with our team managers out in the field. And then it takes money. My wife and I are blessed. Our business has been successful. We're in our 73rd year. My dad started it. I started running it 40 years ago. And our business has grown 35 times. We've been debt-free since 1999, personally and corporately. And, my heart for our state and our country bleeds for what we've been going through. And I have the ability to get in here and do this now. My son and my daughter are third generation. They're helping run the business so I can pursue this. And we've been blessed financially, and we've pushed $5 million of our retirement fund, my wife and I have, into this campaign to seed it, to show people we're committed to this. It's a big risk, but we're willing to do it. And I appreciate the voters out there that have encouraged us to do this, and for me to get involved. And so we're in it, and we're winning all over the state when we drive around and speak and present our platforms, and excuse me, and they're ready for somebody that has integrity, that's a true conservative with a backbone that'll hold the line, that can make a difference and honor God's principles and protect our God-given unalienable rights through the Constitution. And that's the only authority, that I have as your employee, I mean, y'all are the employer. If I get in, is to protect your God-given unalienable rights and do what's best for America. And it's not that hard. It's pretty easy to look good if you're just willing to do the right thing. And that's what I'm known for in our communities, and a leader in our business and our buying group that we belong to, and the political activist agendas that we fought in the state. And we're making a difference, and we want to take that to DC.
Awesome. Well, that just sounds great, and I wish you the very best of luck. It's really great to know that you're out there and fighting this good fight.
Yes, sir. It was good to meet you at Ron Paul's 90th birthday event.
Thank
I haven't started your book yet, but I got it, Provoked, so I'm looking forward to reading it.
Great. Well, really appreciate that. And tell us your website one more time.
lynchforsenate.com.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for your time, Mark. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. God bless.
Thanks for listening to The Scott Horton Show, which can be heard on APS Radio News at scotthorton.org, scotthortonshow.com, and the Libertarian Institute at libertarianinstitute.org.